Hi, this is part 2 of getting started with Rival IQ. In this video, we're going to go over the social analytics within public data. In the previous video, we learned how to set up a landscape, and I am using a beauty landscape where I am pretending to be Huda Beauty throughout this presentation. So I quickly want to talk about public data versus private data. You'll notice in social analytics, we have two main sections: competitive public data and your private data. The public data is what we can gather for any public social handle. The private data includes a lot of additional metrics that are only available if you have administrative rights to that social handle and you've connected that social handle to Rival IQ. We'll go over private data in a separate video. Today, we are just going to focus on this particular section, the public data of Rival IQ. So typically when you start Rival IQ, this is the page that you will start at. This is the cross-channel overview. And all that means when I say cross-channel is I'm looking at all of the social handles that I entered into my landscape. So for Huda Beauty, I happen to have a social handle for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. So when I look at the cross-channel at a glance for Huda Beauty and I see 22, almost 23 million followers, or the audience count, that is not a unique number of people. Because if I had a really zealous fan, they may be following me on all 5 platforms and they will be counted 5 times in this number. You can see a specific channel by clicking it over on the left or using the navigation at the top, and we'll go over that in a minute. So this 22 million, this is the number of followers they had on the last date of the time period I have selected. So I have March 1st through March 31st, which means on March 31st, that's when Huda Beauty had that 23 million followers. And then the percent change is the comparison period. So we default to the previous period, and of course you can change that here. So the overview page is to summarize all of the metrics about Huda Beauty with some reference to your competitors, but it really is all about Huda Beauty. You can see here at the top, we have those most important metrics: your audience, your posts, your engagement total, and then your most engaging channel. We give you a spark line, and you can see that there were 2 spikes within March, and we can get into those details a little bit later. As you keep scrolling, you'll see that we've listed Huda Beauty's top post by channel. So what we've done is by engagement rate, we've picked out the most engaging post for each one of those 5 platforms. And then we've found an interesting observation about each. These will vary depending upon your data. You can see here we've pulled out that a hashtag was used not just for the top post, but for 3 of the top posts that Huda Beauty posted during that time period. Sometimes we will show you how your top post compared to your other post, or we look at how your top post compares to the entire landscape. For example, on TikTok, not only was this Huda Beauty's most engaging video, but it was the second most engaging video across the entire landscape. And that's about 100 companies. So that's why we call it out and let her know that she's doing very well on that channel. Now, as we scroll down, you'll see we give you details on how Huda Beauty is doing for each channel, and then we provide a competitor average for those 100 channels that you saw. You can click through here to view more details so you can see exactly where each one of those competitors rank. But again, this is just to give you a summary of Huda Beauty. We also pull out observations about the audience, the posting activity, and the engagement. You can turn on or off the specific channels by clicking on that channel, so you can narrow down your view to just the appropriate channels. So again, now that we've gone over the overview or the summary of Huda Beauty, let's go a layer deeper. You'll notice that theme throughout Rival IQ. we really like to start broad and then zero in on the specifics. So we started at the overview. We're going to move over to the leaderboard, which just allows you to see exactly how Huda ranks to those 100 competitors. So I said there were 100 competitors, but you can see here there's only so much room in the chart. If you click view more, that's how you're able to see all of those details. And I'm going to go back to the main dashboard. So here we have your audience along with that net change. And then we have your posting activity and engagement. And we have that posting activity also in this time series. So on the previous page on the overview, you saw a spark line with engagement and there were 2 spikes. You can see those here, and if I hover over that data point, I can actually click view content to see everything that was posted that day, which contributed to that spike. I can quickly see that the top post had 931,000 engagements compared to the next that had 66,000. So clearly this is a major contributor to that spike. I can click through and view it directly on TikTok. We're not going to watch that video. But that's how you can see exactly what contributed to those spikes. And I'm going to close this. Now we get into more details about engagement, all of those engagements being aggregations across those 5 channels. I typically like to zero in on a specific channel at this point, because once I start evaluating exactly how I'm doing compared to my competitors, I find it's best to zero in on a specific platform just because engagement and engagement rates can vary wildly among those different platforms. So if I go to specifically TikTok, which was Huda Beauty's best performing channel, I see a very similar page. I see the followers, the net change. Again, we have specified a channel, so instead of just posting, I've mentioned the videos which were posted. And then we get into some specifics. Of course, we have the engagement total, which is the same as on cross-channel, but then we show that engagement total per video, the engagement rate by follower, the total views, and the engagement rate by view. I really want to pause here and go into depth about these engagement rates by follower and engagement rate by view. So if you've used RevIQ in the past or another social media analytics platform, you may be familiar with engagement rate by follower. If you're not, it's simply a way to normalize engagement rates among presences with very small followers versus presences that have millions of followers. I like to use this one particular example. I think Kim Kardashian has like 300 million followers on Instagram. Now, if you are a small brand and you only have 100,000 followers, that's still good, but it's not comparable to the 300 million. If both of you post something on the same day and both of your posts receive 50,000 engagements or likes, which one of those actually elicited a more engaging response from the people who saw it? If you're guessing that small brand, you would be correct. And that's because that small brand with their 100,000 followers on Instagram was probably only seen by 80 to 120,000 people. Whereas Kim Kardashian, with her 3 million followers, sure, she wasn't seen by all of them, but she's more likely to appear in their feed. So she was probably seen by 1 million plus people. Yet both of those posts only received 50,000 engagements. So that is why the engagement rate by follower is so important, because we're normalizing that engagement rate so you can compare that small brand to brands like Kim Kardashian. That worked very well for Instagram and Facebook because of the way their feed showed content from those who you followed more frequently. With TikTok, they don't care about who you follow nearly as much. TikTok has an algorithm with the For You page that shows you content you are most likely to engage with based on past behavior. So with TikTok, I highly recommend looking at this TikTok engagement rate by view. And that will give you a better idea of the people who saw your content, how many engaged with it. Now, if you have private metrics, you can have things like engagement rate by impression, which of course would be a more powerful metric to show you exactly how many people engaged after seeing your content. But that's only available for companies you manage, which is why we use the engagement rates by follower or view with public metrics. Okay. So we went over the overview, the summary of your focus company, the leaderboard, which shows exactly how you rank among your competitors. Now we're going into social post. Social post is where you're looking at the individual post, lumping together some attributes and trying to figure out what is it that is making these posts resonate with your customers or is detracting them from engaging with your post. So similar to other pages, we are highlighting Huda Beauty. We're giving you some reference points for the videos posted per day, engagement rate, the use of hashtags in the top hour of the day. So then as you scroll down, I'll go into in-depth of each of these panels, but just as an overview, you can see all of the videos that are posted within your account, the activity and engagement, along with some descriptors for the description that you add to that post, and then post times. So let's go over each one of these panels so it can work for you. Now this is top landscape videos, but I actually analyze every single post by your entire landscape. Just click that view more, and that's how you're able to see all of those TikTok videos. And I want you to make this panel work for you. So change the columns depending upon the platform you're on and the metrics that are most important to your campaign objectives. So perhaps I'm not interested in the details among engagement, but because this is TikTok, I really want that engagement rate by view, and I want the total views. And now I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to sort this by the total number of views. So now I see the most viewed TikToks at the top of my screen. So there's something important to note here. We would love to be able to tell you who boosted their videos. We don't have that information, but we have been doing some research, and here's a little trick. If one of your competitors has lots of views, but their engagement rate is less than 1% and sometimes even less than 2%, that is most likely a boosted video. The reason we know this is because we've looked at thousands of videos and we've found the average engagement rate on TikTok to be between 5 and 10%. There are plenty of double-digit engagements, and there are some that are lower than 5%. But when they have thousands of views, and this one, for example, has 12 million, and the engagement rate is that low, it is usually because it is boosted or the original author has taken off the comments. So go ahead and view it on TikTok. I'm going to pause this and double check. So you can see here comments are turned off. That could be an indication that this is not a boosted post. However, I suspect in this case, given that it's the brand, it is a boosted post. It's just a quick trick when you're looking specifically at TikTok. So some other views to look at in this particular panel, since we're on TikTok, I really like this mosaic with details. You can see here, I get a better view of the video. It looks more like it does in the native platform. I can still see who posted it. I have this sorted by views, so I get that key statistic, and I can either turn on or turn off those post tags. Another popular view is this top versus bottom view. So this one is most effective, I think, on Instagram. And even within Instagram, I really like this view when I'm looking at just a single post type, for example, photos. So you can see here some of the differences between the top 9 and the bottom 9 posts. And the first thing that you'll notice is some of these don't have images. Most likely this one has been removed from the public on Instagram. You can click through and see that right away. I like to remove those from my view. So to do that, I'm going to switch back to the list view, and I'm going to sort it in descending order by engagement rate. I'm going to make sure those post tags are on, and then I'm going to tag those 3 posts. Of course, I would double check them, which I have already done, and I'm just going to tag them as deleted. Now, I'm going to exclude those deleted posts from my view, and I've done that here. Now, when I go back and I do that top versus bottom, those deleted posts are no longer clouding my view. So there are a few things that we've noticed as general trends. These may vary per industry, and there's always exceptions. But in general, we've found on Instagram that photos that contain faces only do well if they are someone famous. I mean, you can see here very clearly this is Kylie, and then this is also a famous model. Whereas these people, maybe they're models, but they don't have the same type of fame. Other things that tend not to do well when you have a text overlay along with things like this. There are always exceptions, but these are the types of things that you can see most clearly when you do that top versus bottom view. I like this even more when I go to a single brand, usually my own brand, but for the purposes of this, we'll quickly do one with MAC Cosmetics. And just so you can see some of those trends that I just mentioned, these product-focused shots tend to always do very well. And here we can see those pictures with the models along with the text did not perform nearly as well for MAC Cosmetics. So this top-bottom view is the type of thing that you can take directly to your creative team. And again, based upon the metric that is important to you, you can tell your content, I want a little bit more of this and less of that. So let's again go back to TikTok, and we'll leave this panel and go on to the next. So the next thing that we have is activity and engagement. And I am still filtered to only show MAC Cosmetics. So I'm going to remove that filter so I'm able to see that full landscape. Now when I see activity and engagement, you can see I have all of those brands listed on the left, along with a trended line on the right. And just like I showed you on that previous page, you can click through to view the content associated with that specific data point. Now we have the popular topics and the hashtags. These two panels work very similar. The purpose of them is to really evaluate the post description that you manage. The popular topics shows you through natural language processing many words that were used in that set of posts. And then hashtags simply evaluates all of the hashtags included in the post. So let me show you how I will use this panel. I'll use it to try to find hashtags that I'm not using but seem to resonate well with my audience. I happen to be on TikTok, so I'm going to think about the metrics that are most important to me. Again, managing those columns to ensure, since this is TikTok, views, engagement rate by view, and engagement total per video are selected. Then I'm going to sort them by the metric that matters the most to me. Since it's TikTok, I'm going to say views is the most important metric. Now, once I've done that, I'm just going to scan through here real quick, and I notice things like CeraVe and Thayer's. If I'm Huda Beauty, I will never use these branded hashtags. So I'm going to eliminate them by making the minimum companies that are displayed here 3. That means that at least 3 companies have to post about this particular hashtag. Now I have broadly used hashtags sorted by the views. So I'm looking for hashtags that I have not used. If you look at companies using, anytime it's blue, that means that the focus company, in this case Huda Beauty, has used it. So I'm going to scan down for ones that Huda Beauty has not used. And now I'm starting to see things that may be applicable to my brand. So I have K-Beauty, mascara, skincare tips. These are all things that Huda Beauty may consider using. There's one more thing you might want to look at. In addition to views, you may want to look at that engagement rate by view, because perhaps some of these are getting a lot of views because they are promoted. And you can see here with mascara, the engagement rate is quite low. If I scroll down a bit, I see that there's a better engagement rate with this oddly satisfying. I'm actually going to expand it so I can see the companies that are using it, and I can see the engagement rate for each one of those companies. So since it does have a variety of engagement rates, some being well over that 5%, which I explained was the average for TikTok, I would then go in and look at some of the videos posted to make sure I understand that hashtag. I happen to know oddly satisfying is very similar to ASMR, which is a hashtag that Huda Beauty has used successfully. So that would be a good hashtag for Huda Beauty to consider adding to their campaign. You can imagine there are many other ways to use that particular panel. So there's one more panel on this page, and that's post times. If you are a social media manager, you know getting the right time or day to post your content can be difficult. So I'm going to tell you how this chart is set up, and then I'll give you some tips on how to use it. So the top two charts show you how the number of posts you published at that hour or on that day. So I can see that Huda Beauty posts a lot more frequently at 10 and 11 a.m. than later in the afternoon. And I can see with my landscape average, it's a little bit more during normal business hours. This time zone is set within your landscape settings. So you may want to confirm it's the time zone that makes the most sense for you. I'm going to come back to social analytics and to TikTok and come back to that social post. Give this just a minute to load. Now, that's when things were published. This is the engagement rate for the posts that were published at that time. I'm not looking at when people click like. I want to know if I publish something at 10 a.m., does that publishing at that time receive more engagements than if I publish something at 6 p.m.? And I can see here, just looking at Huda Beauty, there's a lot of engagement at 9 a.m. and 7 a.m. compared to their most popular posting time at 10 and 11. So that could be an indication that that would be a better time to post. There's also a big spike for the entire landscape at 1 a.m. But this is where knowing how to use this can really add value. You probably want to expand your time, include 6 months a year. If you have 2 years worth of data, add that. That'll just give you a broader set of data to look at. The other thing that you may want to do is remove outliers. So an outlier, if you post something, and this is Huda Beauty, say they did a partnership with Beyonce. I don't care if you post that at 2 a.m., 2 p.m. Beyonce just released an album. That post is going to get lots of engagement. So you would want to come in here and manually tag that as an outlier. Just like I showed you for the deleted post, all you would have to do is type whatever you want to call it. I like to call it outliers. Now, after you've tagged all of your outliers, I like to remove them. So you can do those. I can also remove those deleted posts because those often were not available for a very long time. You can use your judgment there. I often exclude contest when I'm doing this. So now I've eliminated those outliers, deleted posts, perhaps those contests. Now I'm going to take another look at this. And now I can see, again, Huda Beauty is posting most often in the morning, but I can see here the spike of engagement is actually in the afternoon, and that 2 a.m., which was clearly an outlier, has been removed. So that's how you would be able to use the social post. We will do a follow-up video where we go into post tags, but that is all of the basics for the competitive data. If you have any questions, use that support button and chat with us. Thank you.